Good morning. Board is visible to you all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Important instructions today in the chat. You have to for the attendance. You have to send your name and the roll number in the chat box today. Okay, because the attendance plugin is not working today. So you have to send your name and roll number in the chat box. Understood? Okay. Now, we have started with the stress and strain here, and we know that the stress is the force per unit area, strain is the change in length upon original length. Then within elastic limit, the stress is directly proportional to the strain, and the constant of proportionality is known as the Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity equal to stress upon strain. Then, because of the axial load, when any component is subjected to the axial load, the deformation of this component over the length of L meter because of the external applied force P is given by delta L equal to PL upon AE, which can be written as stress into L upon E because P upon A is the stress. Provided this delta L equal to PL upon A, this formula can be used only when for this particular length L, here the cross-sectional area should be constant, P should also be constant. Okay. Then from the stress strain diagram, we have calculated here some important mechanical properties of the material like yield stress, ultimate stress, proportional limit, elastic limit. Yield stress is the load at the yield point upon the original cross-sectional area. Ultimate stress is the maximum load during the test upon the original cross-sectional area. Then I told you about the factor of safety, which is very important factor. Here, factor of safety minimize the risk of failure. Okay, this factor of safety is defined as the yield stress upon the working stress. Here, working stress or the safe stress or the design stress. This is the actual stress which we can consider while designing any component here to design the cross-sectional area. This stress is actually which stress? This is the safe or working or design stress. Here, there are number of stress which we have studied, but whenever you want to design any component for the safe design, here this stress must be the working stress or the safe stress. Now, how to decide the working stress or the safe stress? I told you that in stress strain diagram, this working stress on safe stress value, we have to decide. Design engineer has to decide the working stress or the safe stress value. Okay, and this value should be always within the elastic limit. Now, how to calculate that working stress or the safe stress? So, working stress or safe stress can be calculated by using this formula. It is a factor of safety equal to yield stress upon the working stress. Clear? This formula is not to decide the or to calculate the factor of safety. It is to calculate the working stress. Here, so first first factor of safety you have to decide, and from the factor of safety you have to decide the working stress. Here, because for that particular material, yield stress is the property which is remain same. Okay, only these two parameters will vary for that particular material. Here, so first we have to decide the factor of safety, and from the factor of safety you have to decide the working stress. Here, reverse is not true. ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले working stress decide करेंगे and then factor of safety. No, first factor of safety, and from that one you have to decide the working stress. Here, while solving the sum, here it may happen that working stress would have been given and it may ask the factor of safety, or factor of safety is given and from that one it may ask to calculate the working stress. Here, in numericals it may be anything, but when you consider any standard design of any component, here in that case, first design engineer has to consider the factor of safety according to the given conditions, and from the factor of safety he can calculate the working stress or the design stress or the safe stress. Here, apart from that, one more stress is that is the allowable stress, permissible stress, safe stress. Okay, so this is the stress which is allowed. Here, means when we design any component considering this factor of safety, this working stress, safe stress is nothing but a allowable or permissible stress. Okay, then induced stress is again different. Okay, induced stress is the actual stress which is induced in the material during its service life. Okay, and it is expected that the induced stress should be always within the working or permissible stress or the safe stress. It should not go beyond that. Okay, if this is the working stress, if this is the safe stress or this is the permissible stress, then the induced stress should be always below that. If it goes beyond that, material will not fail all of suddenly here because of this factor of safety. Okay, but it may be in danger, risk will be there. Okay, that's why induced stress should be always within the permissible stress. Clear? If the induced stress is greater than permissible stress, we can say that the design is not safe. Material will not fail all of a sudden, but we can say that the design will not be safe or design is not safe. Okay, so then we have solved few sums on this. Now today we have to study the deformation of the composite material. Deformation of composite material or composite rod, you can say. Composite rod or composite bar. Okay. What happened? Sometimes if you consider, now there are two different cases here. We can consider the stake rod, maybe 2 or 3. Material may be same, may be different. Consider this is part 1, this is part 2. Or another case is a uniform rod, uniform cross-sectional area, maybe of same material, maybe of different material. Here, consider this as a L1, this as a L2. Here also consider this as a L1, this as a L2. Okay. Now, these components are subjected to some axial forces. Okay. Now, when the component is subjected to some axial forces, maybe at the end or some internal forces may be there, or force may act at some intermediate point. Yeah, then when such type of component is there which is subjected to some external forces as well as the forces at some intermediate point, then it is known as a composite rod or composite material. Okay. Now let's consider this subjected to some axial force. I'm considering some numerical value. Let it is 10 kilonewton and let it is 20 kilonewton. Okay. And at intermediate point there is one force P. Let this force is P. Okay, this rod is subjected to some external forces as well as the one force is applied at the intermediate point also. Here, let this is a force P. Now, first thing is that here you have to consider that this rod should be in equilibrium. Okay, if it won't be in equilibrium, it will be in motion, and when it is in the motion, the stresses induced will be something different. Okay, so we have to consider the stresses induced in the rod when it is in the state of rest or in equilibrium. So for the equilibrium, you have to balance the forces and you have to find out the force P. Here, most of the time the forces are given. If the forces are not given, you need to balance it properly. Okay, so all the forces are in x direction, so you can consider summation of Fx equal to 0. Or just by observation, I can say that on left hand side there is only one 10 Newton force and right side the 20 Newton force is there. So to balance this forces here at intermediate point, one force should be there which must be towards left and not towards right. Given force is towards right. This force which is shown, it is towards right, but for the equilibrium it should not be towards right, it should be towards left. Just by observation will come to know. Or by calculation also we can calculate summation of Fx equal to 0, so it is minus 10 plus 20 plus P equal to 0. From this one, I'll get P equal to minus 10 kilonewton. This minus sign indicates that this given direction of the force P is wrong. Here, for the equilibrium, for the forces to be balanced, this force P should be equal to 10 kilonewton towards left. Okay, so I'm rectifying this. This is 10 kilonewton towards left. Okay. Okay. No problem. Okay. So P equal to 10 kilonewton towards left is the intermediate force acting at the intermediate point. Now we have to calculate the total elongation of this rod because of the axial force. Okay. Number of forces are acting, but we have to calculate the elongation or deformation and the stresses induced in that particular component because of the axial force. Okay, and here we cannot calculate the deformation of this entire rod here by taking only 10 or 20 kilonewton. Here in such cases, when the external or intermediate forces are acting, when there is a composite rod, here we have to use the principle of superposition. Principle of superposition means in this one we are going to calculate the deformation of this rod 1 separately and deformation of this rod 2 separately, and we'll add that. This is the superposition. Okay, so we are going to use the superposition here. We are going to calculate the deformation of each rod separately and we'll add them. Okay, for that here you need to draw the free body diagram of each part separately. The reason is that here the number of forces are acting, we have to calculate the stress as well as deformation induced because of the axial force acting on that particular component. And how to calculate the axial force acting on that particular component? So for that, let's draw the free body diagram of that particular part. This is the free body diagram of this part 1. This is the free body diagram of the part 2. This length is L1, this length is L2. This area is A1, this area is A2. Okay, now we have to find out ये जो part 1 है, yeah, how much is the axial force acting on this part 1? How much is the axial force acting on this part 1? That we have to calculate. Okay, now how to calculate the axial force acting on any particular position or on any particular part of the component? Okay, remember this procedure because we have to learn it or we have to use it while calculating the shear force, bending moment and axial forces in beam. Okay, so here also we have to calculate the axial force, and same method we are going to use there also. So how to calculate the axial force acting on this, because all these stress and deformation that we are going to study in the first lesson, that is the stresses and strain because of the axial forces only. So how much is the axial force acting on this part 1? So to calculate the axial force, what we have to do? First you have to check the equilibrium. The component, entire component should be in equilibrium. Now to find out the axial force in the part 1, consider one imaginary section through this part 1. इसमें से एक imaginary section लेने का है. Now you know that why we take the section. Imaginary section क्यों लेते हैं? Here in first year, why we used to take the free body diagram? Why we used to draw the free body diagram? This taking the section is nothing but drawing the free body diagram. Okay. So why we need to take the free body diagram? Now suppose if these two circular bodies are in contact with each other, at this point of contact these two bodies are exerting the reactive forces on each other, and these reactive forces are equal, opposite and collinear. So if I consider both the bodies together, or if I consider the entire MPD, these forces which are equal and opposite cancel the effects of each other and you won't get that. Here, these axial forces are nothing but the internal resisting forces induced in that particular component. Okay, like this. This is also the internal force. Here, now in first year, if we need to calculate this internal force, what we used to do? Here, we consider one imaginary section and we separate this. We separate this and we draw the free body diagram. And by applying the condition of equilibrium, we can get this. Okay, so exactly in the similar way, to find out the axial force in the part 1, yeah, which is the internal force induced in this part 1, consider one imaginary section through that part and take the algebraic summation of all ये सेक्शन के कौन से भी एक साइड के एक्सियल फोर्सेस का समेशन ले लो. नाउ आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द समेशन ऑफ एक्सियल फोर्सेस. इसके पहले मैंने यूज किया समेशन ऑफ Fx इक्वल टू 0. When I use summation of Fx equal to 0, this is the conditions of equilibrium for which I use the forces acting on the entire part. And I use the normal sign convention, the force acting towards right positive, force acting towards left negative. Yeah, but how to calculate the axial force? For calculation of the axial force, you have to take the algebraic summation of all forces, axial forces on any one side of the section. Section के कौन से भी एक side के axial forces का summation ले लो. Now, while taking the summation of axial forces, the question is that what sign convention we need to use here. So, I am suggesting don't use this sign convention over here. Here, for axial forces, the sign convention which you have to use here, you have to use tensile force positive and compressive force negative. This sign convention you have to use. Now, how to identify the tensile force? The force which acts away from the position or the body under consideration is the tensile force, and the force which is acting toward the body under consideration is the compressive force. Here. So, with respect to this section, if I consider the algebraic summation of the forces on any one side, here on left hand side there is only one force 10 kilonewtons. It means that this component is subjected to an axial force of 10 kilonewton tensile. Its nature is tensile, so this will also be tensile. And to balance this, here should also be tensile, because since the entire rod is in equilibrium, each and every part must be in equilibrium. Okay, so to balance this 10 kilonewton on here at this intermediate point, also you have to show one force 10 kilonewton towards right. Or this 10 kilonewton you can get by taking the algebraic summation of the forces on right side of this section. If I take the forces on right side of the section, this is tensile force, so plus 20 with respect to this section, it is acting away, so it is tensile. With respect to this section, it is acting towards, so it is compressive, so it is minus. We have to use this sign convention. So what is the summation? Summation is plus 10. Plus 10 means on right hand side of this part, here the tensile force of 10 kilonewton is acting. You can do this way also, or take the algebraic summation of any one side of the section, which is easier to calculate, and directly for balancing on other side you show the same force. Summation of forces on any one side of the section. So if I take the algebraic summation of the forces on right side of the section, so on this part 2 on right hand side there is only 120 kilonewton tensile force, so show it 20 kilonewton, and to balance this here also 20 kilonewton. Means this first part is subjected to an axial force of 10 kilonewton tensile, and second part is subjected to an axial force of 20 kilonewton tensile. This 10 kilonewton force is responsible to induce the stress in the part 1 as well as deformation of the part 1. Similarly, this axial force induced or acting on the part 2 is responsible to induce the stress in the part 2 and deformation in the part 2. Okay, so if I say this has a P1 and if I say this has a P2, then this delta L1, deformation of this part 1, can be calculated by using this formula. Here it is P1 L1 upon A1 E1, and delta L2 can be written as P2 L2 upon A2 E2. Now both are the tensile forces. Both components are subjected to the tensile forces here. So this is also increase in length, this is also increase in length here. So the total deformation delta L equal to delta L1 plus delta L2, summation of these two. Okay. Now if suppose this part would have been subjected to the compression, then this will be the decrease in length. This will be the increase in length, this will be decrease in length. Then accordingly you have to take the summation. Then in that case, increase in length you can take plus, decrease in length you can take minus. Here ultimately you will get the total length. Okay. So this is known as the principle of superposition. You have to calculate the total deformation, you have to calculate the deformation of each part and take the algebraic summation of that deformation, you will get the total deformation. Here in this way you can calculate the deformation. Now if you want to calculate the stress, here stress in the part 1 equal to P1 upon A1, stress in the part 2 equal to P2 upon A2. You can calculate the stresses separately. Okay. Then now this stress you can observe that is depends on the axial force as well as area. Now remember one thing, stress equal to P upon A. It is depends on axial force P as well as cross sectional area A. Now, if I consider two different components, here on these two components, if the same axial force is acting here, then remember it means that if P is constant, then stress is inversely proportional to the cross-sectional area. Remember, if the P is constant, the stress is inversely proportional to the cross-sectional area, and if cross-sectional area is constant, if the cross-sectional area is constant, then stress is directly proportional to the P. Okay, remember stress is not always depends on the P. Stresses depend on the P upon A. But if A is constant, stress is directly proportional to the P, axial force. And if the axial force is constant, stress is inversely proportional to the A. Okay, now corresponding to, is that clear how we can calculate delta L1, delta L2 here, and total deformation, which will be the summation of these two? Is that clear how to calculate the stress in part 1, stress in part 2? Here separately you have to calculate. Okay, now.
Hello, sir. Sir, video is little hanging in middle.
If it is in the hanging position, you mean to say
Sir,
like
video
this?
अटक सर अटक रहा है वीडियो.
अच्छा. It is a problem for all of you. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sometimes
sir.
it is.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But everything is proper. Net connection is also there. Everything is proper. From my end, there is no problem. Okay. Hello. Now is it okay? Rahul? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just cross check your connection. Okay, because I am using the college Wi-Fi. So from my end, I don't think that there is any problem. Anybody who is using the Wi-Fi, WireNet, Vasai cable, they are also facing the same problem?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
No, sir.
No, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. So you cross-check your at your end only. Okay. Now come back. Now let's consider the same rod which is subjected to an axial force of 10 kilonewton. Here 10 kilonewton, here 10 kilonewton, and no intermediate force. Okay, all of you have to answer my question. Okay, unmute yourself and answer. Here, let's consider these two cross-sectional area. Let this is part 1 whose area is A1, let this is part 2 whose area is A2, and it is subjected to the 10 kilonewton force at the end only. No intermediate force is acting. Now, in this case, if I draw the FBD of the part 1, where the axial force is 10 kilonewton. If I draw the FBD of the part 2, how much is the axial force on the part 2? If I take imaginary section here and take the algebraic summation of the forces on any one side, so how much is the axial force acting on the part 2? It will also be 10 kilonewton. It means that in these two parts, here the axial forces are same. In the first part also 10 kilonewton, in the second part is also 10 kilonewton. Okay. Now remember one thing, in both the parts, axial forces are same. In which part the stress will be more? What will be the relation between sigma 1 and sigma 2? Sigma 1 is greater than sigma 2, sigma 1 is less than sigma 2, or sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2? Tell me, answer my question. First, second, third. For the given situation, when the axial force is constant, in which part the maximum stress will induce? Just now I told you that stress equal to P upon A. If P is constant, the stress is inversely proportional to the A. Okay. Now, by using this concept over here, in this both the part, the axial forces are same. Yeah. Tell me, in which part the maximum stress will induce? Just tell me. Unmute karo and tell the answer. Unmute yourself and tell me the answer.
Sigma 1 is greater than sigma 2, sir.
Sigma 1
Yes,
is
Sigma 1 greater than sigma 2.
yes, very good. Sigma
Yes.
1 is greater than sigma 2 because axial force is same. This A1 is less than A2. A1 is less than A1 is less than A2. Since this cross-sectional area is less and both are subjected to the same axial force, so maximum stress will induce in the part 1 because its area is less. Area lesser is less, sigma 1 will be greater than sigma 2. Understood? Okay. Provided this axial force should be same. Okay. Now, second case I have considered, then there is a same cross-sectional area. Okay. If the area is same, listen to me, stress equal to P upon A. If the area is same in both the parts or number of parts are there, but if the area is same, the stress is directly proportional to the P. जिसमें axial force ज़्यादा होगा, yes, the more stresses will induce in that particular part, provided A should be constant. Any doubt? Here, okay. Then here, for solving such type of questions, I suggest draw the free body diagram of each part and apply the conditions. Principle of superposition to calculate the deformation. Now you can do it directly also. Delta L equal to delta L1 plus delta L2. Here this is equal to P1 L1 upon A1 E1 plus P2 L2 upon A2 E2. Generalize I have written. Now sometimes while solving the sum, it may observe that on both the parts the same axial force is acting. So you can take P common. If the cross-sectional area is same for both the parts, here then you can take means A1 equal to A2, you can take A common. If the modulus of elasticity is same for both the parts, if it is made of the same material, if the entire rod is made of the same material, here then E1 equal to E2, you can take that common. Here, so the parameters which are common in both the parts, you can take them common and simplify and you will get the answer directly. If any part is subjected to the compression, here then you can take it minus because it is an increase in length, this will be the decrease in length. According to that, you have to use the superposition and you can calculate the total deformation. Understood? Okay. Now, we'll solve the sum. Here, refer that PDF, sum number 6. Sum number 6. Listen, I will just explain you the concept. Here calculation, if possible, will do. If not possible, you do the calculations yourself. Here. Sum number 6, one rod is given, made of the 3 different parts. The length of the first part is 500 millimeter. The length of second part is 600 millimeter. The length of the third part is 700 millimeter. It is subjected to the 50 kilonewton here, left side. At the intermediate point, one force P is there. Here one force P 30 kilonewton. And at the extreme right, here the force is 65 kilonewton. Okay, this figure is given. And it is given that a circular bar having 200 millimeter square area, the cross-sectional area, even though 3 parts are there, but the cross-sectional area is same. Okay. Axial forces are varying because of this intermediate forces in this part here. So cross-sectional area is same, A1 equal to A2 equal to A3, and it is given as A equal to 200 millimeter square. Find the value of P and the total elongation. Here you have to calculate the force P and total elongation because of this force system. How much is the total elongation? Here take the value of E equal to 200 kilonewton per millimeter square. E equal to 200 kilonewton per millimeter square. That is, we can write it as a 200 into kilo, means 10 raised to 3. That is 2 into 10 raised to 5 Newton per millimeter square. Am I right? Okay. Because all forces we are going to take it in kilonewton, and all this value of E will take it in the Newton per millimeter square, and distances and area are in terms of millimeter and millimeter square. Okay, doesn't make any difference even if you keep this E in kilonewton per millimeter square, because the forces are in kilonewton. Okay, so you should be able to judge this, where to convert and where not to convert. Okay, if you convert over here, you have to convert this P also. If you don't convert it, if you keep it in kilonewton as it is, keep the forces also in kilonewton. Okay, now I have to calculate the P first. Now, since the entire rod is in equilibrium, by using the condition of equilibrium for the entire rod, I can calculate the force P. Here I am going to use the normal sign convention, not the sign convention for the axial forces. Okay, when you need to calculate the axial force in any particular part, you have to use the sign convention for the axial forces. And sign convention for the axial forces are tensile positive and compressive negative. Okay, just now I explained. That is the sign convention for the axial forces. Clear? So here it is minus 50 plus P minus 30 plus 65 equal to 0. So how much is the value of P? It is 80 minus 65. So which is equal to 15 kilonewton. So P equal to 15 kilonewton. This answer is positive. Okay, here we have considered the positive value towards right as a positive, towards left negative. This answer is positive doesn't mean that it is towards right. This answer is positive means this assumed direction of P is correct. So P is towards right. Here, so this P equal to 15 kilonewton. Now we have to calculate the total deformation of this rod. We have to calculate the total deformation. Now to calculate the total deformation, even though the area is same, but each part is subjected to the different axial forces, and we have to calculate how much is the axial force induced in each part. For that, you have to take the section. You have to take the section at such a point where there is a change in axial force. Okay, here you have to take the section at such a point where there is a change in axial force. Here, so because of this P equal to 15 kilonewton, at this point there is a change in axial force. Here there is a change in axial force. Consider the section there and draw the free body diagram. So this is the free body diagram of the first part, free body diagram of the second part, free body diagram of the third part. Here this length is 500, this is 600, this is 700. The total cross-sectional area is same, which is 200 millimeters square. Now we have to find out how much is the axial force acting on the first part. To calculate the axial force acting on the first part, consider one imaginary section through the first part and take the algebraic summation of all forces on any one side. On the left hand side there is a 50 kilonewton. So show 50 kilonewton on the left hand side. To balance this, here also there will be 50 kilonewton. No need to take the algebraic summation on the right hand side. Okay. Then to find out the axial force in the second part, consider an imaginary section through the second part and take the algebraic summation of all forces on any one side, either left or right. Okay. If I take the algebraic summation of the left hand side, now we are calculating the axial forces. So while taking the summation, you have to use the sign convention for the axial forces, and sign convention for axial forces is tensile positive, compressive negative. Okay, don't use the sign convention for the condition of equilibrium to calculate the axial force. Okay, so here if I take the section passing through the two parts, because I have to calculate the axial force induced in the second part. So take the section through the second part and take the algebraic summation. Now this force is on left hand side, this force is on left hand side. So these two forces we have to add by using the proper sign convention. Now with respect to this section, this force is tensile. So positive, plus 50 minus 35. So summation is 35 plus 35. Plus 35 means tensile. So second part is subjected to the 30 axial force of 35 kilonewton. Okay, and how much is the axial force in the third part? Take on imaginary section through the third part and take the algebraic summation on any one side. So on right hand side there is only one force of 65, and to balance this is also 65. It means that for this one, the first part is subjected to an axial force of 50, second part is subjected to an axial force of 35, third part is subjected to an axial force of 65. You have to calculate the total deformation of this rod. Here, so if I consider this as a 1, this as a 2, this as a 3, then total deformation is equal to, now all three are subjected to the tensile axial forces. Means there will be the increase in length for all these three because of the axial force. Since there is an increase in length, I will add all of them. Here, so delta L equal to delta L1 plus delta L2 plus delta L3, which is equal to, it is P1 L1 upon A1 E1. Now area is same, so I will consider it as a E, made of the same material, so E is also constant. So let A1 equal to A2 equal to A3 equal to A, and E1 equal to E2 equal to E3 equal to E, because it is made of the same material. Okay. For second, it is P2 L2 upon AE. Third, P3 L3 upon AE, which is equal to, if I take 1 upon AE common, then in bracket it is P1 L1 plus P2 L2 plus P3 L3. Just substitute the value, you will get the answer. Now here, remember, if E is in kilonewton per millimeter square, P has to be in kilonewton. If E you have taken in Newton per millimeter square, then P1, P2, P3 must be in kilonewton. If area is in millimeter square, L1, L2, L3 must be in millimeter. And E will be in kilonewton or Newton per millimeter square. Okay, so use proper dimensions, proper unit, and substitute the value, you will get the delta. Here it will be in millimeter, if you take L is in millimeter. Don't forget to write the unit. Okay, if you substitute the value, you will get the answer. Any doubt?
सर वो थर्ड बॉक्स में जो 30 न्यूटन है उसका मतलब क्या यूज है?
थर्ड बॉक्स में
ऊपर 30 किलो न्यूटन का जो फोर्स लगाए ऊपर क्वेश्चन में
ओके इधर
उसका यूज
मतलब 30 किलो न्यूटन.
यस मतलब यूज का भी हम यूज नहीं किया अभी तक.
Now listen, it is the force acting at some intermediate point. Okay, sometimes it may happen that, listen, suppose this is one machine shaft. Consider this is one machine shaft. Here on this machine shaft, okay, some gear or some coupling is there. Suppose these two couplings are there. These two shafts are there which are connected with the help of such type of coupling. These are the nut bolts. Okay. Sometimes it may happen that some external force may act on that coupling. Okay. Or if there is a pulley, for example, here if there is a pulley, suppose instead of this, on the shaft, one pulley is mounted. Okay. Here pulley and this belt passing over this pulley is not vertical. It is somewhat inclined. Or incline a belt. Okay. Here some another pulley is there. Okay. Now when there is a tension in the belt, this tensile force is acting like this. Okay. Now when I resolve it into two components, yeah, so this is the horizontal component of that force, means on this shaft at this intermediate point, one horizontal component of the force is applied and one vertical component of the force is applied. Okay, here, so there are some applications, depending on that applications, here these intermediate forces are active. Understood?
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay. Second thing, for example, again one another example related to the civil. For example, suppose this is one beam. You are supported at its two extreme end, and at this intermediate point, one external applied inclined force is there. Some inclined force is acting. Here there are various reasons to apply that inclined force. Okay. Now when we apply such type of inclined force, we can resolve it into two components. Okay, to balance this component, horizontal component, here must be one hinge support, and the horizontal component of that hinge support here is equal to this force P. If this force P is there, then the horizontal component of that hinge support is also P. Means in this beam, if you observe here, in this part, compressive stresses are induced because of this P. कौन से stresses induce होंगे? compressive. अभी ये force कहाँ से आया? This is because of this external applied force. It is a component of that external applied force. Here, and because of this part is subjected to the compressive loading, and on this part there is no axial force. इस पे axial force है ही नहीं. If you take the section of this and if I take the algebraic summation on any one side, there won't be any axial force. Here, so ये part में ये जो second part है, इसमें axial stress कितना induce होगा? It will be 0. Understood? Here, these are the stresses induced because of the axial forces. This vertical component is also responsible to induce the stresses. Here, now because of this vertical component, it will bend. Here, and because of that, the bending stresses are induced. Here, that will be different. Means in this particular part, here combined stresses are induced. Here, there are direct stresses as well as bending stresses. Here, so these are known as the combined stresses. Here, so there are different applications. Here, so this intermediate force is acting. This intermediate force may be because of any inclined force acting at any intermediate point on the beam, or say if such type of shaft is there, on that particular shaft also some inclined force is there. Here, I'm considering the simple example of the pulley. Here, but when suppose two shafts are there which are connected together with the help of bevel gear. Even if you consider the spur gear, two different shafts are connected with the help of spur gear. Spur gear का teeth horizontal रहता है, and bevel gear का teeth inclined रहता है. Here, now when such type of inclined, such type of bevel gears having the inclined teeth are meshed with each other. Yes, they exert the forces on each other with some inclined way. Here you have to study that in theory of motion or kinematic of motion. Here these inclined forces are acting, and when such type of inclined forces are acting, here when we resolve it, here then this horizontal component or this axial component is responsible to induce such type of axial forces or axial stresses, and this vertical component is responsible to induce the bending stresses. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you solve this and get the answer. Just you have to put the value and get the answer. Then next sum number 7. Now here it is a step rod. First part, second part, third part. This is 512, 520, 530. A, B, C, D. This length is 100 millimeter. This is 200 millimeter, and this is also 200 millimeter. It is subjected to the external applied force P, and here also it is P. No intermediate force is there. Okay. Now, if you observe this, no intermediate force is there, only external P forces are acting. Whatever is the magnitude of the force P, okay, here if I consider the imaginary section of part AB to get the axial force in the part AB, so in part AB also axial force is P only, in part BC also axial force is P only, in CD also the axial force is P only, means in all the three parts the same axial force is induced. And if same axial force is there in all the three parts, here the stress induced will be maximum in the part whose cross-sectional area is less. Means for this force system, just by observation, if I ask you in which part the maximum stress will induce, here, then easily you can say that the part AB is the part in which the maximum stress is induced. Understood? Yes. But अगर यहाँ पे कुछ intermediate force है, यहाँ पे कुछ intermediate force है, 10 kilonewton, 20 kilonewton, then just by observation, since now the axial forces are varying, and since the axial forces are varying, just by observation, you can't say that in first part AB, the maximum stress will induce. In that case, you need to calculate the stresses in each part separately, and then you have to compare. Okay, but since the axial forces in all the three parts are same, we can say that the maximum stress is induced in the part AB whose cross-sectional area is less. Okay, now what is the question? In the question it is given that a circular bar of 500 millimeter length, here 200, 200 plus 100, has a cross-sectional area as shown in the figure. Diameters are given. Determine the maximum axial pull. You have to calculate the maximum axial pull. How much maximum axial pull we can apply, which the bar may be subjected if the maximum stress is limited to 100 Newton per millimeter square. I have to calculate the maximum force P applied such that in this entire rod, here the stress should not go beyond 100 Newton per millimeter square. In any part, the stress should not go beyond this limit. Here, this is a permissible stress. So, stress induced in any part should not go beyond this value. Yes, this stress can be induced in any one part. Okay, here, but it should not go beyond this, and corresponding to this, you have to calculate this force P. Okay, now you'll observe that since the stress is same, since the axial force is same, this maximum stress will induce in the first part. Here, and this is the maximum. It should not go beyond this. इतना ही होना चाहिए. इससे कम इंड्यूस हुआ तो चलेगा. Corresponding to this maximum, find out the maximum force P. So we know that here when the axial force is same, here the maximum stress will induce in part AB since minimum cross-sectional area and axial force is same. Okay, so I will consider the ability of this first part. How much is the axial force acting on this first part? It is P, and length is 100 and phi is 12. Here, then the stress induced in this part is 100 Newton per millimeter square. Now we know that the stress equal to P upon A. So stress is 100. P we have to calculate. Corresponding to this stress, how much is the force P that we have to calculate? Upon cross-sectional area, which is pi by 4 into 12 square. If you calculate this, you will get P. Since this stress in Newton per millimeter square and area in millimeter square, so जो value आएगा that will be in Newton. So this much maximum force P we need to apply. Yes, and listen, axial force is same. यार इसमें maximum stress induce होगा. यार अगर ये 100 consider किया, so the corresponding to that force P, corresponding to this stress, the stress induced in the part BC will be definitely less than 100. And this will also be definitely less than 100 because the same axial force is there, but area is more. If the area is more, the stress value will be less. Okay. Yeah. So don't calculate the force P considering this stress induced in the part BC. If you calculate the force P considering this stress induced in the part BC, you will get one value of P. Okay. But when the stress induced in the part BC will be 100, definitely corresponding to that force P, the stress induced in the part AB will be greater than 100. Because P is same and the area is reduced, so stress value will increase. Okay, so when the stress in the BC becomes 100, the stress in the AB definitely will be greater than 100 for the same axial force. But in this case, the allowable stress is only 100. It should not go beyond 100. Permissible limit is only 100. Okay, and that's why we have considered this 100 is induced in AB. We have calculated the force P, and corresponding to this force P, you can calculate the stresses in BC and CD, which will be definitely less than 100. Understood? Here. So, determine the maximum axial pull which the bar may be subjected if the maximum stress is limited to 100 Newton per millimeter square. Also find out the total elongation, E equal to 2 into 10 raised to 5. You have to calculate the total elongation corresponding to this force P. You have to calculate the total elongation. E is 2 into 10 raised to 5. Okay. Now here, in all the three parts, now I am not drawing a separate FBD because in all the three parts the axial force is same, which is P, which we have calculated. Now we have to calculate the total deformation, total elongation. Now delta L equal to. Now all the three parts are subjected to the same axial force, which is tensile in nature. Since it is tensile in nature, all the three parts will get elongated. Okay, so the total deformation equal to the deformation of the part 1 plus deformation of the part 2 or deformation of the part 3. In fact, all three are the elongation. Okay, now in all the three parts, P is constant, L varies, upon A varies, and E is constant, 2 into 10 raised to 5, which is given. P and E is same for all the three. Here, and L1 A1 changing plus L2 A2 plus L3 A3. Have understood this? Or write it separately and calculate it, substitute the value and get the answer. You will get the delta L. First calculate the P, use this P here. Everything is given, substitute the value, you will get the delta L, which is in millimeter, and this value is positive because the tensile axial force is there, means here it is the elongation. Either write elongation or write increase in length. Because of this axial force, this much is the increase in length. Calculate. Substitute the value. E equal to 2 into 10 raised to 5 and tell me the answer. Calculate. Unmute yourself and tell me the answer.
Sir, pressure is
pressure not
11309.7.
Hello.
Oh, sorry.
Pressure,
yes,
it is
sir.
not pressure, it is a force. How much?
11309.73.
11309.
0.73 Newton.
0.73 Newton. No. Okay. Okay. I don't know the answer. Okay. Delta L. Substitute in the delta L and get the answer. Zero 0.121 millimeter.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Correct answer.
0.102.
0.1020.
1020. Correct answer. It is 0.102 millimeter is the correct answer. Deformation. Okay. What about the other? Are you getting answer or not?
Yes, sir, same answer.
Okay. Listen, such type of circular rod is there. In this circular rod, we have to make one circular hole. Okay, means this much part is a hollow circular one. Okay, if you see the side view from left hand side, therefore it is a circular, hollow circular. This is the area. Okay, but this depth, depth of this circular hole is up to x. The total length of this rod is 640 millimeter. Okay, and this rod is subjected to an axial force P. Here, this much part from here to here, this is a solid circular one. This is a solid circular. Okay, this external diameter is 550, and internal diameter is 530. Okay. For this material, E is given as 210 gigapascal. Okay, it is given in gigapascal. Here figure is given. All dimensions are given there. What do you have to find out? Find, this hole is drilled internally. Okay, you have to find out the length of the hole such that the extension of the hollow part of the bar is equal to the extension of the solid part when axially loaded by the tensile force. Calculate the length of the hole. Here, you have to calculate this length of the hole, which is shown here as x. For any axial load, kitna bhi axial load lagao, here we have to find out this x such that here the deformation of this hollow part should be equal to the deformation of this solid part. Iska deformation और इसका deformation same होना चाहिए. Now we will observe that since we have to consider the deformation of this hollow part and the deformation of this solid part. So let's consider one imaginary section over here. This cross-sectional area is different, this cross-sectional area is different. Yeah, but these both the parts are subjected to the same axial force. If you consider the axial force on this first part, it is also P. On this second part, it is also P. Okay, so you have to find out the length of the depth of this drill hole x such that for any axial force, the deformation of the hollow part should be equal to the deformation of the solid part. If I consider this as a 1 and this as a 2, here, so I have to calculate this x such that the delta L1 should be equal to the delta L2. Have understood this condition? Okay. Then both the parts are subjected to the same force P. So delta L1 can be written as P1 L1 upon A1 E1, which is equal to P2 L2 upon A2 E2. Clear? Both parts are subjected to the same force P. P gets cancelled. Both the parts are made of the same material E. E is same. So whatever may be the unit, here whatever may be the value, but since both are same, so it will get cancelled. Yes, so here L1 upon A1 equal to L2 upon A2. Here just substitute the value. L1 is X, L1 equal to X upon area pi by 4 into 50 square minus 30 square because it is hollow part. And how much is the length of the second part? We have considered this section. This is the solid part. How much is the length of that solid part? It is 640 minus x upon its area is pi by 4 into 50 square. Again, this pi by 4 get cancelled. Simplify this, you will get that. So this much should be the length of the drill hole such that for any axial force, the deformation of the hollow part will be equal to the deformation of the solid part. Simple question, not that difficult. Calculate and tell me the answer.
Sir, 249.75.
249.75 millimeter. This formula is applicable when the cross-sectional area is same. But when the cross-sectional area is taper, here this formula is not applicable. Then for such type of taper rod, how to calculate the deformation because of the axial force, that we'll study tomorrow. Thank you.